From a dream to a plan, then work, hard work, to culminate a run such as this by Edgar Special Delivery Jones. But it wasn't a man who made the touchdown, it was a team. Yes, and 10 men were in the picture to help Lou Groza in his first season break every existing record for field goals and conversions. It was a team that won a community over, with more than 400,000 fans attending home games and being repaid with a championship. It was a team of youngsters, strong, alert, typically American, molded into champions by a man who never saw them as anything but champions. The story of the Browns actually begins in Little Bowling Green, Ohio. After 2 years of scouring the country in search of talent, the Browns opened training camp on July 29, 1946, and from near and far came the Husky athletes. John Yoniker of Notre Dame came from Boston. From California arrived Max Speedy of the University of Utah. And all the way from military service in China came Lou Saban of Indiana and Al Aikens of Washington State. Most of the players, however, came from Ohio and neighboring states. Among them were Lou Rimkus of Notre Dame, Dante Lavelli and Lou Gross of Ohio State. Greeting them is tackle coach Bob Voigt, himself a former All-American at Northwestern. Comparative strangers to Voigt at the start, these three attained wide renown as the season progressed. Rimkus developed into an all-league tackle. Lavelli became the outstanding pass receiver in the conference, and Groza put the foot back in football as he place-kicked his way to the league scoring title. Upon reaching the picturesque campus of the State University, the players discovered that their home for the next 6 weeks was to be, of all places, the Alpha Zeta Delta sorority house. Although deserted by the co-eds who were at home on summer vacation, the squad of 48 found the quarters attractive and comfortable. The friendly community of Bowling Green, nestling in the rich farm country 23 miles south of Toledo, proved an ideal training site for the Browns. The fast-growing State University, with its complete modern facilities, afforded the team a conditioning atmosphere that left nothing to be desired. It was peaceful, it was wholesome, it was beautiful. On the first day at camp, the duties of checking in the players and assigning them to rooms were shared by assistant coaches John Brickles and Fritz Heisler. New acquaintances were made and old acquaintances renewed as the squad assembled for the start of the rigorous routine, predicating the drive to the All-America Conference Championship. Rimkus, Groza, and Lavelli, like many of their teammates, had been signed to contracts by Brickles, who ran the Browns office while Paul Brown was in the Navy. Having been established in their quarters, the players quickly repaired to the athletic building, where trainer Wally Bach and his assistant Morris Kono were on hand to distribute equipment. The club, starting from scratch, obtained the highest quality uniforms available. It is very important that helmets fit just so, shoulder pads don't slide, and pants foot. A typical day in camp began at 6:45, with Public Relations Director Nate Wallach playing reveille on the fire alarm. Nobody ever could figure out who woke Wallach. It required several tugs on the alarm by Wallach to rouse George Cherokee sufficiently to prod George Young out of dreamland, and Alton Coppage wasn't scoring very fast in his efforts to awaken Lynn Houston. As was the case in service, the toughest job for the boys was getting up with the chickens. Wallach was persistent, however, and soon the boys were performing their ablutions. After breakfast, the team went to class. These skull sessions, incidentally, are a common practice among pro football clubs. Paul Brown, however, is more exacting and goes into more detail. His players were equipped with notebooks in which they diagrammed their assignments for future reference and in which they jotted helpful hints on such basic fundamentals as running, blocking, and tackling. The notebooks, incidentally, accompanied the boys on all trips during the regular season. Coach Brown then splits the squad according to positions, while Fritz Heisler briefs the guards. Bob Boytz, another assistant coach, instructs the tackles. Next came the actual practice sessions for which the players usually don complete uniforms. Lou Groza and Jim Daniel discuss tackle assignments, while Otto Graham demonstrates what the well-dressed quarterback wore. Bob Colasar, a full-fledged doctor, is the patient this time as Wally Bach tapes his ankle. Colasar's ankle wasn't ailing, incidentally. This taping routine is simply insurance against injury. Ankles and knees have an aggravating habit of popping out of place at the darndest times on the football field and consequently must be reinforced. The spirit of cooperation displayed in the Browns' well-balanced attack all season even reflected itself in the dressing room. A comfortable, perfect-fitting uniform is a prime requisite of a successful football team. It's important, for example, that a kicker of Lou Groza's ability be equipped with the best shoes money can buy. From the dressing room, the players run, not walk, to the practice or playing field. And the first order of the drill are those detested muscle-murdering exercises, more politely referred to as calisthenics. Each coach, including Brown himself, took a daily turn at leading the setups, and the calisthenics used by Brown are designed to iron out kinks and loosen the muscles. Probably the most grueling phase of any workout, aside from actual scrimmaging, is that devoted to pouring resounding shoulder blocks into the charging sled. Perfect timing and rapidity of charge, rather than brute strength, were demanded of the linemen. After warming up on the big machines, the guards, tackles, and ends concentrate on discharging their assignments position by position. Cross blocks, reverse blocks, and brush blocks are practiced while elsewhere on the field, the centers and backs are practicing pass patterns and running plays. At this early stage of the training routine, the squad is drilling in groups which are being polished into smooth functioning parts. Later, these will be assembled into a well-coordinated unit. At last, the groups are ready to work together, and from then on, theirs becomes a number game. Each play is designated by a number such as T24, and each play demands certain blocking assignments on which the success of the maneuver depends. On days following an intra-squad game or after a heavy scrimmage, the team ran through light signal drills. Two formal intra-squad games featured the training camp season. One at Toledo was a benefit affair for the Downtown Quarterback Club's welfare fund, and the second at Bowling Green was sponsored by the Kiwanis Club for its hospital building campaign. The field work ends about really ready for a refreshing shower. And a full-course dinner. The Browns' training table at Bowling Green was in the Falcon's Nest, a rustic building on the college campus. The girls who waited on the players were summer students at the university. Mrs. Mildred Wright, the supervisor, even provided flowers for the tables. Sometime in her culinary career, Mrs. Wright learned two things about the eating habits of football players. They liked wholesome food and lots of it. All in all, it was a daily adventure in good eating. And although the athletes themselves had no trouble keeping down to playing weight by dint of the rigorous workouts, The same could not be said of the newspaper men. One scribe, in fact, gained 10 pounds in 6 weeks, even though he slept through the breakfast hour each morning. After dinner, some of the players, like fullback Galen Smith, spent a portion of the evening reading or writing a letter home. Others went to the movies, and some, like Tommy Colella, Chet Adams, Dippy Evans, and George Cherokee, played bridge. The recreation room in the sorority house was a popular hangout for the athletes, such as the piano-playing tackle Wilfred Kramer, whose efforts with the Ivories didn't impress Ray Terrell or Don Greenwood or Jim Daniel. Such horseplay as Terrell increasing the volume on the radio to drown out Kramer's rendition was all part of the evening's fun. At least, Smith wasn't disturbed, and he finally finished his letter before the 10:30 curfew. At the same time, there was activity in the business office. Shirley Harness, Paul Brown's secretary at Great Lakes, is again on the job for her boss. Hundreds of fans were delighted to hear the voice of this young lady, Frances Cobb, who through her direct telephone contact saved them lots of time and spared them trouble and aggravation simply by making it easy for them to order their tickets in the locations they wanted. An accommodating gal? Yes, sir. Here's a fellow with worries trying to figure out how to put all 70,000 people on the 50-yard line. This is Jerry Forstner, folks, the ticket manager, who did a tremendous job filling the needs of a tremendous number of people. The business manager of Cleveland's entry in the All-America Conference was Frosty Froberg. Part of Frosty's program was the establishment of ticket agencies throughout the state, and with Secretary Margaret Brockhoff double-checking, these offices were set up in more than a dozen cities to serve thousands of the Browns' most enthusiastic supporters. Yes, a football team even requires an auditor, and it took a good man like Joe Levitt to fit the bill. After all, $1 million gate is quite a slice of big business. To thousands of news-hungry football fans, Publicity Director Nate Wallach was indeed the good provider. At a press conference, Nate is meeting with Herman Goldstein of the News, Bob Yonkers of the Press, and Harold Salbry of the Plain Dealer. And here is the maestro of the Gridiron musical extravaganza, George Red Bird himself. Here you see an accomplished musician, composer, conductor, and producer whose musical majorettes became the toast of the town and their halftime performance the talk of the nation. The man with the dream, with the man who made the dream a reality, Arthur B. McBride, owner of the Cleveland Browns, and Paul Brown, his coach and general manager. Win, lose, or draw, McBride makes good his pledge to give Cleveland and Ohio the best. And win, lose, or draw, you can count on this. Paul Brown and his boys will give the fans nothing less than the best. While the players went through their chores at Bowling Green, the musical majorettes strutted through rehearsals for their peppy, popular halftime shows. The majorettes, like the football players, were recruited from far and near. Each was an accomplished musician. Some also could dance or sing or do both. And their solo performances were incorporated by George Bird into what became recognized as the greatest extravaganza in football. Bird was brought up from Massillon by Paul Brown. The two men collaborated in producing fine high school football shows down there, and they became an immediate sensation in the professional ranks. Like Brown, Bird is keen-minded and intense. He is satisfied with nothing short of perfection, and judging from the acclaim accorded his musical majorettes, he produced a perfect show. This is the home of the Browns, Cleveland Municipal Stadium, where on this day the Browns are playing the Brooklyn Dodgers, and the fans are hurrying to get into their seats for another enjoyable football afternoon. They're coming across the bridges, over the railroad tracks and the walks, and all paths leading to the stadium. Here are some of the booths where souvenir programs, banners, and miniature footballs were available. Some of these people were attracted to the earlier games out of curiosity, and perhaps one of the questions that's running through their mind is how far can the Browns go? It's a new team in a new league. Here in the vast parking lot just adjacent to the stadium are thousands of cars which have brought many thousands to the game from out-of-town places. And finally, it's almost game time, and just before the kickoff, the musical majorettes come out, and the many fans are greatly impressed by this pregame show. The girls march up the middle of the field in their gay colored uniforms, enthralling the many thousands who have never seen such a spectacle. And behind the band are some of the players coming out for their pregame warm-up. Bob Smith, who narrates the halftime show, calls off many items of information through the public address system. George Bird conducts the musical majorettes playing the national anthem. And now the moment for which the assembled thousands have waited has come. It's time for the kickoff, with Lou Groza kicking off for Cleveland. Excitement of the game is also manifested by the players on the sidelines who join in cheering for the team. On the first play, Glenn Dobbs takes the ball and throws a pass intercepted by Edgar Jones. On the sidelines, excitement runs high too, but back of this is the cool, analytical mind of Paul Brown and his assistant. Bob Voits on the telephone relays information sent down from the observation point in the upper stands by other assistant coaches. Graham gives the ball to Tom Colella, who cuts through tackle for a touchdown. Don Greenwood holds the ball as Groza boots it, and it's good. And in the bleachers are thousands of youngsters, one of whom is now extremely happy with a new football. It's Greenwood in motion, a direct pass to Edgar Jones, who spins and runs wide around left end, cuts back in, and goes down to the Brooklyn 10-yard line. This gives you a brief idea of why Jones was labeled special delivery. Later, Lou the Toe Groza came into the game to try a field goal. Groza kicked, and high up into the stands the ball goes. Good for 3 points. Young Cliff Lewis, Lakewood boy, who played at Duke and Fleet City, now in at quarterback, laterals to big Marion Motley. Don Greenwood takes the ball, goes through the right side of the Brooklyn line for a touchdown. 1 of 6 he scored during the season. Another kickoff, and again Glenn Dobbs returns. Dobbs, Brooklyn's one-man team and one of the greatest players in pro football today. His bullet passes and sensational quick kicking featured the Dodgers' attack all season. The Browns are on the march this time, with Marion Motley breaking away on 2 of his favorite plays, traps to the right. Motley, the Canton star, who played at Great Lakes last season, was a surprise visitor at the Browns training camp this year when he asked for a trial. He made good in a big way as he carried the ball 73 times for 601 yards. And as the first half of this exciting football contest ends, it's the cue for the beginning of another football extravaganza created by George Bird for the musical majorettes. The girls, as they march on the field, present another one of their intricate and colorful formations. The majorettes, whose costumes were designed and created specifically for each halftime show, are seen in their colorful white satin ensembles with their military boots as they parade up the field. In fact, so impressive were the shows and the halftime ceremonies that the vendors of the lowly hot dog practically became bankrupt, since the thousands of fans preferred to watch the show rather than to enjoy halftime refreshments. And now the majorettes show that they not only can march, but also can do a fancy dance step as they play Dixie Jazz Band on Dress Parade, one of their more popular routines. They salute Brooklyn and Cleveland with formations of the letters B and C. This, however, was just part of this particular show, which was highlighted by the recreation of that other classic of Mudville entitled Casey's Revenge. Little Tommy Flynn steps up to the plate, and waving his great menacing bat awaits the first pitch. The pitcher winds. The pitch, Mighty Casey takes it, and the umpire says, strike one. Casey looks anxiously now. The pitcher on the mound looks in, winds, pitches, Casey takes it, strike two, the umpire said. The pitcher winds. The pitch, Casey swings, and a mighty boom resounds throughout the countryside as the ball sails far and high out of the park and out of sight for a home run. One of the other original creations by George Bird was a Mexican hat dance for the halftime show used in the Los Angeles Dons game. Majorettes, costumed in the traditional mantillas, dance as they play the Mexican hat dance. And from the middle of the hat comes Corky Swihart to do her version of the Mexican hat dance. And to the plaudits and cheers of the fans, she disappears into the hat, bringing to a close another halftime performance of the Majorettes. One of the halftime shows was highlighted by the appearance of many nationality groups garbed in their traditional dress. Mayor Thomas A. Burke of Cleveland and Arthur B. McBride are among the interested spectators. As a means of aiding the Community Fund's Red Feather Drive, this float was designed. One of the many notables who attended the Browns games was General Jonathan Wainwright, the hero of Corregidor. And as a fitting tribute to this courageous soldier, the musical Majorettes pass in military review. The Browns continue to march against the Dodgers. After the halftime intermission, Edgar Jones returns the kickoff to open the second half. Here is one of the outstanding plays of the season, with Otto Graham throwing a long pass to Max Speedy, who gets up after a circus catch and is finally stopped by the safety man on the Brooklyn 7-yard line. Coach Paul Brown shouts encouragement to his team as he makes numerous substitutions. Another running play, Greenwood in motion. The ball is passed to Marion Motley, who slips and falls just 3 yards short of a touchdown. The ball is given off this time to Greenwood, who cuts through left tackle for a score. Here the Los Angeles Dons are kicking off to the Browns with Edgar Jones taking the ball, starting up the middle, cutting over to the right side of the field, and being stopped on his own 27-yard line by Bill Radovich, the Dons' all-league guard. A running play with Marion Motley carrying the ball, going for a first down. Still another running play. This time the ball is handed off to Galen Smith, who bursts through to the Los Angeles 30-yard line. Otto Graham on this play attempts to pass, is rushed, fades back further, and finally throws the ball far down the field, complete to Dante Lavelli on the 3-yard line. It is Edgar Jones in motion, but Graham scores on a quarterback sneak. Groza comes in and boots another extra point. One of the high points of this game was Lou Groza's 49-yard field goal. Groza booted, good for 3 points. This field goal was but 5 yards short of the professional record of 54 yards. Later in the season, Groza racked up 50 and 51-yard field goals. This is the beginning of the San Francisco game, and the Browns are assembled for last-minute instructions. Lou Groza's kickoff is taken on the 5-yard line by John Strykowski, who fumbled but finally recovered. An attempted field goal by specialist Joe Vitrano is no good. Motley recovers the ball and returns to his own 30. A pass play with Otto Graham throwing out in the left flat was complete to Max Speedy. After winning 7 games in a row, the Browns found the San Francisco 49ers keyed up for their best performance of the year. Everything that the boys from the Pacific Coast did that afternoon seemed to work, while the Browns' powerful ground and passing offensive, which had subdued 7 opponents, could not gain consistently against Buck Shaw's boys. Quarterback Frankie Albert of the 49ers, one of the best field generals in pro football, had a great afternoon as he led his mates to their 34-20 victory over the Browns. The colorful football pageant continued in the game against the Chicago Rockets. On this kickoff, the ball was taken by Elroy Crazy Legs Hirsch, who was finally brought down by Big Lou Rimkus. Hirsch, a hard running back, was the youngster who teamed up with Otto Graham to help the college All-Stars defeat the Los Angeles Rams in the All-Star Classic in Chicago last August. Each of the Browns games was filmed completely by a staff of photographers. These films were used for analysis by the coaches, whom we now see seated in the conference room, reviewing the films of the games and analyzing the highlights of the past season. Edgar Jones, on a fake pass and run, thrilled the crowd at the first league game with Miami. Faking a pass, drove the end in, Jones ran outside, picked up blockers, and then cut back brilliantly. But Jones failed to score by 1 foot. On the next play, Don Greenwood went off tackle for the 6th point. Tommy Colella, up the middle with good blocking by Scarry, speeded through the secondary 50 yards for another great run in this opening game at the Cleveland Stadium. Lou Groza kicked the point after touchdown, one of the 46 he made during the season to establish a new professional record. On an attempted pass by Miami, Ray Terrell intercepted. Ray electrified the fans as he went 76 yards for a score, and the final score, Browns 44, Miami nothing. Cleveland defeated Chicago in a hard-fought contest on the following Friday 20-6, and the next game defeated Buffalo 28-0. Following an intercepted pass in the Yankee game by Greenwood, Graham threw to Lavelli in the end zone, and the Browns went out in front 7-0. Another interception, this time by Mo Scarry, gave the ball to the Browns on the Yanks 30. Graham faded, threw a long pass to Speedy, who then ran to the 2. Cleveland on the next play scored, and the Browns had 14, Yanks nothing. In the second half, some of the Yankees' offensive power was displayed when Sanders passed to Alford in the end zone for a touchdown, making the score Browns 17, Yanks 7. In the closing minutes of the 4th quarter, Jones went off tackle, cut back, and with sensational running, scored another touchdown for the Browns, and Cleveland won another contest, 24-7. With the Browns playing host to Brooklyn, Glenn Dobbs was back in punt formation. Faked a kick and threw a 15-yard pass to Mickey Main, who ran to the 43-yard line before being forced out of bounds by Lou Saban. The final score read Browns 26, Brooklyn 7. In the first quarter of the game at Yankee Stadium, the Browns defense forced New York to punt. Sanders' boot was taken by Cliff Lewis on the Browns 7. Lewis cut to the far side of the field, then ran laterally, evading a host of tacklers, and streaked up the sidelines, going to the New York Yankees' 38-yard line, where Cliff suddenly ran out of gas. Starting on the Yankees' 40-yard line, Orban Speck Sanders, on a beautiful off-tackle play, broke through, displaying the driving power which won the sensational Texan all-league recognition. And after 40 minutes of scoreless football, the Browns clicked for the only score of the game when Otto Graham faded back, threw a long pass into the end zone complete to old Glue-Fingers Lavelli. And the final score, Browns 7, Yankees nothing. Jaron John Kimbrough, in the Los Angeles game at Cleveland, took a pass from quarterback O'Rourke and with good blocking ran to the 19-yard line. With Greenwood in motion, Cleveland's score came when Otto Graham, behind good protection, threw a long pass. Speedy made a great catch, shook loose from Don Nolander, and went over for the touchdown. Score, Cleveland Browns 7, Los Angeles Dons nothing. Later in the same quarter, on an open formation, quarterback O'Rourke threw a diagonal pass to Bob Nowoski, who with hard running crossed for the score. The placement attempt by Joe Aguirre was good. Score, Don 7, Browns 7. In the fourth quarter, on a handoff, with a tremendous block by right guard Houston on Radovich, Motley ran brilliantly on a 48-yard trap play. This play in every game was bread and butter for the Browns. In fact, scored more touchdowns than any other Brown play. Several plays later, with Jones in motion, Motley again on the same trap with good blocking by Ulinski and Rimkus went 68 yards for the last score of the game. And as the gun cracked, the score stood Browns 31, Los Angeles 14. In the next game, San Francisco gave Cleveland its first defeat in 8 starts. With Eshmont in motion, a 50-yard run featuring John Strykowski, San Francisco served early notice of their power. Strykowski was finally forced out of bounds on the Cleveland 28. With Eshmont in motion, San Francisco in the second period, Alberts took the ball, faded back, and passed to Beals for a touchdown. And the score stood 49ers 27, Cleveland Browns 7. The next time San Francisco gained possession of the ball, they moved downfield to the 33-yard line. With a man in motion, Alberts again took the ball, faded back, and passed to Beals, who was forced out of bounds on the Browns' 6-yard line. Several plays later, the 49ers scored, making the total 34-13. Here, Cleveland attempted to score on a screen pass from Otto Graham to fullback Galen Smith, who, behind good blocking, ran to the 16-yard line, where he was finally tackled by Ken Casanega. Trying desperately to score in the fourth quarter, a pass from Graham intended for Speedy was intercepted by Casanega on the 50. The game ended San Francisco 34, Cleveland 20. The Browns then flew to the Pacific Coast for 2 games. After dropping a 17-16 thriller at Los Angeles, they bounced back against San Francisco. Setting up the first Brown score at San Francisco, Otto Graham handed the ball to Bill Lund, who went off tackle 15 yards to the 7. Several plays later, dropping 1 step behind a screen of blockers, Graham passed to Lavelli, and the score, Browns 7, 49ers nothing. In one of the most thrilling plays of the season, Graham passed to Motley. And following a good block by Blandon, Motley eluded several tacklers and was finally chased out of bounds by Strykowski on the San Francisco 3-yard line. Several plays later, the Browns went over for their second score. Galen Smith, behind good blocking by Lou Rimkus, scored from the 3. And at halftime, the Browns led 14-0 and were on their way to avenging the previous Cleveland defeat. In the third quarter, with Casanega in motion, Alberts handed the ball to Full Stanley, who on a trap play went down to the Browns' 15-yard line, ending a 39-yard run. Furthering the drive with Strykowski in motion, Alberts faded, threw a 6-yard pass to right end Beals, who went to the Browns 7, from which point Alberts later scored. But the Browns avenged the earlier San Francisco defeat 14-7. In the early moments of the game played at Cleveland against Buffalo, Steve Juswick, back in punt formation, booted the ball from his own 10 to Tommy Colella, who was back in the safety position with Otto Graham. Colella took the ball, started up the far sidelines, and when confronted by many Buffalo tacklers, cut back towards the middle, and then put on a great exhibition of broken field running. Colella sidestepped, straight arm, and eluded the entire Buffalo team, only to be caught from behind on the Buffalo 8-yard line. With Edgar Jones in motion, Otto Graham once more took the ball, faded back to pass, and threw a long pass, which was complete to Dante LaValle, who then lateraled to Edgar Jones, and in the last-minute lunge blocked the safety man, enabling Jones to score. The score, Cleveland Browns 28, Buffalo 17. With Don Greenwood, the right half, in motion, the ball was handed by Graham to Akins, who cut off left tackle, and the former Washington State star displayed some of his great running form as he went 50 yards for another Cleveland score. Lou the Toe Grossa was again called upon to kick the extra point, which he did with ease. With the Browns once again running from the T formation, Colella in motion, the ball was given to Motley on the trap play, who powered his way right through the middle past the secondary and outraced the safety man as he went 76 yards for another Browns tally. Following this, Cleveland whipped Chicago 51-14 and then traveled to Miami for a 34-0 win. In the final game of their league season, the Cleveland Browns traveled to Brooklyn, and in the opening moments of the game, Graham threw a pass complete to Dante LaValle, who showed the running abilities of a halfback as he went all the way to score. Later in the game, with Bill Lund in motion, Bud Schwenk, displaying his passing ability, rifled a pass to John Harrington, who slipped in the soggy turf, then recovering his feet, galloped to the Brooklyn 2. In the following play, the ball was given by Schwenk to fullback Galen Smith, who added 6 points to the Browns' score. In the closing moments of the game, Brooklyn kicked off, and the ball was taken by Edgar Jones, who fumbled momentarily on the 4-yard line, picked up the ball, and then striking through the entire Brooklyn team, raced 96 yards for one of the many touchdowns which the Browns got in establishing a new high-scoring mark for a conference game. The final score, Cleveland Browns 66, Brooklyn Dodgers 14. The high spot of this great season in football for the Browns was the championship game played against the New York Yankees. This game had all the earmarks of a great football battle, and it was just that. Both teams had on their rosters some of the league's best passers, runners, and kickers, and with all final practices completed, the day of the game arrived. After a 40-yard drive early in the game and on 4th down, Harvey Johnson of the Yankees scored a field goal from the 10-yard line. New York led 3-0 in this all-important contest. Later in the first period, Graham passed to Speedy, who took the ball and went to the Yankees' 31 before being forced out of bounds by Robertson. However, the Browns' march for a score had started. On the next play, Graham dropped back, threw a spot pass to LaValle, who carried the ball down to the 13-yard line. Several plays later, with Edgar Jones in motion and the Yankees expecting a pass, Motley on a handoff from Graham fought his way to the 2-yard line. The bread and butter play had worked again. After 2 unsuccessful attempts to score, Motley was called upon behind good blocking by Houston and Remkus, and he crashed through for the first Browns score of the game. Lou Grossa, with a bad ankle, attempted the extra point, and it was good, and the Browns led at halftime 7-3. In the third quarter, featuring powerful running by Spec Sanders, the Yankees started a drive which culminated in a touchdown. Sanders, bowling his way over tacklers, was finally stopped by Motley on the Browns' 31-yard line. The 5-yard defensive holding penalty was one of the few penalties in a clean, well-played game. This typified All-America Conference games throughout the season. Sanders, again on the same play, drove through to the Browns' 20-yard line. Changing the emphasis to power, Sanders, over good blocking by tackles Bruiser Kennard and Nate Johnson, was stopped at the Browns' 13. The Yankees, failing on a pass play, again call upon Sanders. Cutting sharply off tackles, Spec moved to the 5-yard line. Sanders, again on a straight power play, drove to the Browns' 3 for a first down. 2 plays later, Sanders plunged for the score, and so in 8 plays covering 40 yards, New York again took the lead in this championship game. Johnson's try for point was blocked by Lou Rimkus, and the Yankees led 9-7. Later in the fourth quarter, with the Browns trailing, Graham faded, threw to Jones, who made a sensational shoestring catch on the 38, marking the turning point in the game. And at this crucial stage, one of the special plays taken on for the game by the Browns was on court. With the man in motion moving close to the line, the ball was lateral to Colella. Colella cut upfield and went to the 16-yard line for a first down. On the next play, 5 minutes remaining in the game, Otto Graham took the ball, faded back, and passed to Dante LaValle on the 7. LaValle ran the remaining distance to score. Rosa added the point, and the Browns led 14-9. With seconds remaining in this first championship game, New York had the ball. However, time had run out, and the referee picked up the ball and handed it to Captain Lou Saban of the Browns. Emblematic of the championship, and the final score read Cleveland Browns 14, New York Yankees 9. And as the cheering thousands stood to honor the Browns, the players hoisted their great coach on their shoulders and carried him in a triumphant march off the field. And so we come to the end of a great football season in which the Cleveland Browns won the All-America Conference Championship and established many new records in professional football. We look forward to your 1946 favorites of the gridiron will be back. So will be many new stars, all to give you the best show in football.